Hey guys, and welcome to the weekly analysis starting with the week of August 16th. And we are about an hour and a half away from the futures open. Right now, we are looking at the chart of Nasdaq. And the first thing that I wanted to take a look at is how we closed around here. So, over what happened over the last week, we essentially chopped in the same area and then we broke out on Thursday, and then we essentially retested the breakout on Friday. So this breakout was not the strongest support, but we did change of character in here, which means that there is a good potential that we are going to continue going higher. What was interesting is that as I collected all of the upper daily and weekly moves as well as lower daily weekly moves, we essentially are kind of staying in this larger zone. So I wouldn't be surprised that maybe we consolidate a little bit in here and then continue higher, or maybe we go straight up in here and then pause in here as well. We do have equal highs in here, a wick in here, a wick in here. All of that needs to be snapped for a continuation into an all-time high. For right now, though, it is sort of looking like a choppy grind higher scenario for me. What is interesting though is on the 4 hours we are about to witness the golden crossing here. So that is, we have a nice wedge. We broke out of the wedge. We might be retesting in here our breakout, and then once we do get the golden cross between the 20T and 200T and 50T and 200T, we should be able to continue going higher, and perhaps JPM collar is going to be our target eventually for the end of the month. What is interesting that is happening this week is that we're going to get FOMC minutes on Wednesday, and that is the information about what Fed talked about at their last meeting, and that can be not a volatile event. But other than that, there's not too much going on right now in the market in terms of the economic front. And even if you look at the volumes last week, especially relative volume at time, and we go on the weekly chart, you can see that a lot of the volume was actually somewhat. I don't think this is the right indicator right now, so let me actually get rid of this very quickly, and then let's try this again. Volume at time. So it's a technical indicator. So you can see it actually has been lower than naturally we would expect, and that is at around 75% of the overall expectations when it comes to the volume. So all in all, there's not too much volume, and it is looking like a summer months type of consolidation over the last week. We did have a nice breakout. Well, let's see if we can have a consolidation coming up this week. There are two other important events, market events, not economic events, that are going to be happening. On Wednesday, we have VIX futures expiration, and on Friday, we have OPEX for the month of August. And that means that there's going to be a lot of volatility that is going to be entering into the market. And if you're day trading, a lot of times we recommend to stay out of those days because they can be quite volatile and unpredictable overall. And of course, we do have NVIDIA reporting earnings the following week. So that would be the week of August 23rd. And NVIDIA is reporting on Wednesday on the 26th. So that is going to be one of those events that we are going to be waiting for, and that is going to determine the fate of semiconductors and semiconductor stocks overall. So let's take a look into the sectors now and see what we might be looking at overall. XAR was one of the sectors I pointed out last week. It did break out quite nicely. Now you have the break of structure, and it is above all of the previous wicks. So it was a very nice close, and I am expecting a continuation on XAR going higher. US oil still was not able to pass through the 20T, got rejected from there, but it did close above the 50T. So right now it kind of looks like it's about to create some range. Of course, this is connected to geopolitical events, but as of this point, I'm not necessarily seeing continuation to go higher because we do have a rejection from the 20T, and that has happened several times, and we somewhat are invalidating the free white soldiers pattern in here by pretty much closing almost at the body of the second candle. But it could be interesting because what we did see is XLE. So in here, it broke out initially and then it moved back in. I got stopped out from this position, but nevertheless, it decided to continue going higher. We have change of character, and a lot of times when the energy going to be higher costing for longer, the oil services ultimately are going to be benefiting because they're processing all of that energy and they are able to charge higher prices. Even if you're looking into the gasoline right now in the gas stations, you have seen that the closure of Strait of Hormuz elevated the gas prices, but even as the prices of oil went down, the prices of gasoline did not go down by that much. So that's another thing to watch for. 10-year is continuing to grind higher. It's getting quite a bit of resistance in here. We did print this hammer candle, hanging man candle in here. Another one closed below. So there's a good possibility that we actually are going to push it a little bit lower. And that is going back to the idea that the government and the Fed do not want this number to continue going towards 5. And even if it gets towards 5, we usually would see something like of a good rejection from there. So XAR and XLE are pretty good sectors right now to watch for. XLU has making the series of lower highs and lower lows. So we made another low in here, and the continuation, of course, is going to be lower if we are considering the downtrends in here. All the traumas right now are flat, so there's not necessarily any bearishness just yet, but it is a consolidation and it is a little bit bearish in the nature. China has been doing much better, just have a good recovery, recapture 20T and 50T. So right now we're going to be watching on what is going to be happening over the next little while, but we're back in the same range right here, and we'll see if we can break this range at some point. Unlike Nasdaq, which is sitting pretty much very close at all-time highs, where in China we also sit close to all-time highs, but it is a recovery after this big dip and retest of the 200T. And you can see how perfect this retest of 200T was. Touched it and then took off, going in the opposite direction on a monthly chart. Okay, gold. Everyone's talking about gold. Of course, we created a wedge. We broke out of the wedge. Very strong candle, very nice candle. And right now we are getting some resistance at 50T. As we see in here, what it is going to be a little bit of that decision point, but we do have some equal highs in here. We do have no wick candle right above, and also this wick right here that we would need to take over to actually create a proper breakout from this larger time frame structure. As of right now, we still are making a lower high in here because this was a previous high, this is a lower high. So we would need to create a higher high before we're able to go and say that the trend on gold is actually changing. But the signs right now are somewhat looking positive because supported the trend line and now continue to go higher. WM doing very well. You do have a breakup structure in here. Continuation is very likely, as the money is going to be rotating into smaller caps as well. But do notice once again the volume is not exceptional right now. XLB was another sector I pointed out last week. We rejected, went back into the box, and let's see if it is going to set up again. We can leave the alert in here for now. Otherwise, we just wait and see what's going to happen. XLI, somewhat of a breakout, but it's not an impressive one. In fact, I actually would not even take the position until this thing proves itself. And for me, I think it is going to consolidate in here for a little bit before we continue going higher. Silver continuing to go in similar fashion as gold. We have essentially reacted to the trend line and turned around right away. XLP, nothing interesting here. Copper still is getting into this zone of resistance, and it's very difficult for it to pass through, so that's one of the things that we're watching for. For Bitcoin, it's bottoming out, but it still is sitting in this most traded zone. It's creating the lower highs. It's continuing to create lower highs and consolidating right now, so we'll see if there's going to be any type of turnaround, but right now it just looks like a consolidation. SOX has recaptured the 20T and 50T, so that's a good sign. and it closed above the point of control. So I think that there is going to be a good possibility for stock continuation higher. The volume actually is increasing here after this bullish engulfing candle, and we do have a little wick candle in here that might be snapped as we move forward. Already talked about Nasdaq. XLF continuing its movement upwards. So we pointed out this box right here. It's been moving very nicely, and it is expected to continue moving as we move forward. XLY consolidation, nothing to say in here. SMH very similar to SOX, so also nothing to say in here. MES already broke out from its structure and right now is doing a little bit of consolidation as after the breakout. What I don't really like in here is that the volume has been falling off the cliff, but it is still in a bull trend technically. DXY continuing to march towards the trend line, and we'll see how it reacts in there. You can see that's previous several times it has reacted to the trend line, and we do get the golden cross in here. So depending on the geopolitical tensions and what's going on, we will see how the dollar is going to react, but right now it might be just moving sideways. XLK is probably going to consolidate. I feel like this could break out, but I would want it to consolidate a little bit longer before we actually see anything. XHB sitting consolidation. XLV continues to break out on the weekly time frame. It's grinding higher. It's somewhat difficult. You can see that rejections are coming through, but it is continuing to go higher and higher. The previous close actually closed below the previous month's high. So thus far, the month is still not over. We still have 15 days, but that is not the best look overall. We'll see how this plays out, but it still is in the uptrend technically. And then 10, of course, is in the downtrend. Of course, everyone was buying it and on the hype, and then we slammed it down very aggressively. VIX has been melting, and it's getting to that area where we typically see a slow grind higher. So nothing too much on my radar for this week when it comes to individual stocks. AER. So there's a few financial names, a few smaller names, but nothing really stood out to put on the list, and that is because my main expectation for the week is going to be that we either do a consolidation or continue going higher. It's going to be a grind, go somewhat slowly, and then there's going to be up, down, and all around in a very tight range. And why I'm saying the tight range is that if you go on a daily chart, you can basically see that at the top you have previous day high, you have a low upper daily expected move, as well as call wall, and below you have football, previous day low, and lower daily expected move. This also is coinciding with that time where kids and parents are having their last week before they have to go back to work and school, and perhaps a lot of people are just catching up on that. Anyways, good luck y'all, and have fun.